Let me start with a hard truth. You do not have the luxury of telling a claimant that you will call them back. Not today, not in this market, not with this level of competition, not when they've already given you their attention. When a potential client reaches out, you have, at best, a few minutes of their attention. If you aren't able to capitalize, you've already lost. I was talking to a firm who lost what they expected to be a seven-figure case because the intake specialist was instructed by the attorney to let the claimant know that the attorney would call them back after lunch. By the time the attorney picked up the phone, that lead already hired someone else. That lead didn't go to a better firm. They went with a faster one. And the most expensive sentence in the industry is, "We'll call you back." Welcome to the Intake Playbook, the podcast where we transform your law firm's intake process into a secret weapon. I'm your host, Gary Falkowitz, and I've spent more than a decade helping law firms across the country maximize their intake performance. If you want to stop leaving cases on the table, create a better client experience, and grow your revenue, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Let me start with a hard truth that I wish every law firm leader would tattoo on their forehead. You do not have the luxury of telling a claimant that you will call them back. Not today, not in this market, not with this level of competition, not when they've already given you their attention. When a potential client reaches out, you have, at best, a few minutes of their attention. If you aren't able to capitalize on the time that they've allotted to give to you, you've already lost. You've already won the first step of the race. They chose to give you a call. You would be absolutely insane to think that you'll also win the second step of the race, which is a second chance. Whether you admit it or not, whether you realize it or not, you're competing with every law firm who will answer the phone right now. And as most of you know, showing up is usually all it takes. And in our industry, showing up and being decisive is how you maximize ROI. A few weeks ago, I was talking to a firm who lost what they expected to be a seven-figure case because the intake specialist was instructed by the attorney to let the claimant know that the attorney would call them back after lunch. By the time the attorney picked up the phone, that lead already hired someone else. That's it. 1 hour later, gone, signed, lost. And here's the thing everyone forgets. That lead didn't go to a better firm. They went with a faster one, a more decisive one. Let me give you a story from my own life because this drives the point home perfectly. Now imagine this. You're on this fishing trip with your son and you're teaching him how to set the bait and cast the line and reel it in, the whole thing. I'm not a fisherman. But suddenly they hook something big and they're struggling, like really struggling. And they're asking for help. "Hey, Dad, I think I need your help. I think I got one." What do you say? "Hey, buddy, you're on your own. If you can't reel it back in, tough luck." Of course not. That's absurd. What you do is you jump in, you guide their hands, you help them feel the weight of the line because the goal is to catch the fish, not prove a point, not protect their ego, not make the process harder than it needs to be. So let me ask you, why is it so obvious with your son, but not with your business, not with your leads? Why is it that when your intake specialist is struggling to reel in a case, instead of stepping in, your attorneys say, "Tell them I'll call him back"? That's the same thing as saying, "Hey, if we lose him, oh well." That's the same thing as saying, "If we lose him, no big deal." Attention is the new currency. When someone calls you, they're not just giving you their time. They're giving you their attention, the most precious resource in today's world. And you are not promised to get that twice. You are not promised to get a rain check. You are not promised to get a do-over. And if you say, "We'll call you back," what the potential client hears is, "You're not really that important to us, so you may want to look for another law firm." Your intake team isn't supposed to muscle the line alone. Intake is trained, capable, and incredibly important, but they are not attorneys. They don't have the Esquire at the end of their title. They don't have the authority, the credibility, or the weight of a lawyer's voice. And when a lead gets tough, when the person is hesitant or emotional or overwhelmed or defensive, that's the moment that the attorney steps in. That's the moment, not later, not after lunch, not next week, not after the weekend, now. And if your intake person can't reel that line in alone, that's not a flaw. That's the system working exactly how it should. Claimant hesitated, intake escalated, attorney closes. Remember, escalation is not optional. It is the process. Every intake department should have this tattooed on the wall. If you are in trouble, call for backup. Not because you're failing, but because the case is on the line. And your attorney, your closer, should have the resources to secure it in seconds. If you're not empowering your intake team to escalate in real time, you're setting them up to lose cases that should have been won. And I'm going to tell you right now, the number one leak in our law firms is that we tell folks, we'll call you back. I've reviewed thousands of cases, and the most expensive sentence in the industry is, we'll call you back. Yeah, sure, maybe it sounds harmless, but it is fatal. By the time you call them back, the competitor who answered immediately has already signed them. I've seen it. I watch it all the time. And it just crushes me that firms are not taking it as seriously as they should. So here's my challenge to every firm listening today. Stop treating leads like they'll stick around. They won't. Attention is fleeting. Competition is fierce. The window is tiny. You're not the only game in town. When your phone rings, answer. When your intake team signals for help, jump in. And when the line is tight, reel it in together. And if you want to stop losing cases, you should absolutely be signing. Start by eliminating those 4 deadly words from your firm forever. And you know the words, will call you back. Remove them from your vocabulary. There is no room for callbacks when you want to win in this industry. Thank you all so much for listening. If this episode hit home, share it with your team, your attorney, your intake specialist, partner. It doesn't matter. Everyone needs to hear this. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Intake Playbook podcast. If this episode sparked a new idea or insight, take a moment to screenshot it and post it in the Intake Playbook group on Facebook. Share what resonated with you or what you'd like me to dive into next. Your input helps shape this podcast, and I'd love to hear from you. Let me ask you this. Is your intake process maximizing every opportunity? If not, I created the Intake Masterclass to help. Inside, you'll get access to the tools and strategies I've used to help firms transform their intake process and turn missed opportunities into measurable wins. Plus, you'll join a network of professionals all focused on growing their firms. The ROI you'll see from refining your intake will speak for itself. Visit intakeplaybook.com today and start making every lead count. Thank you again for spending your time with me on the Intake Playbook podcast. Remember, intake isn't just about systems. It's about building trust and creating connections. Keep pushing forward. And if you're looking for more resources or details from today's episode, check out the show notes at intakeplaybook.com. I'll see you there.